Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, take your notes out. We're going to continue on with the Constitution of the United States of America. We're going to get into some really interesting particulars today as far as application of the Constitution. I passed back the, if you had, some of you guys didn't get to me your IRMAS, the original versus the cover. If you've done that, just make sure you get that to me, okay? Because I graded the ones, or I gave credit for the ones that had been turned in. I think there was just a few of you guys that I didn't get that back from, maybe because you hadn't quite finished filling out the form or so forth. But those are important extra credit ones, yes? You did. It's available on Google Classroom. Actually, I might even have an extra copy up here if you want to come around after class. But yeah, so those are extra points available. Also doing the preamble, memorizing the preamble, and coming in at lunch or after school to do that, right? Because otherwise, there's no really big parts of the grade at all coming up. Yeah, it's like we've already had our semester final, okay? So we're already getting started on the next unit. That sound good? Right? Very good. Okay. So, you ready? Let's get to it. The United States Constitution. Yep. Oh, yeah, here we go. Article 1. Article 1. Okay? Ready, JT? Okay. Here we go. Have the sheet out in front of you, okay, that I gave you last time, or the sheets, I guess, because it's stapled. And we're going to continue looking at we did the qualifications, right? How old do you have to be, Scott, to be in the United States House of Representatives? 25 or more. 25 is the minimum age. There actually was elected last month a 25-year-old. It's really unusual. The average age in the House of Representatives, I want to put it at about 50 or 60 at least. Okay? And actually in the Senate it's even higher. But there was a guy who was, I'm trying to think of all the details and so forth. He lost the ability, and I want to say it was an accident, or was it a military thing? Anyway, he was elected. He's 25 years old. He's from North Carolina. He's in the House of Representatives. Okay? By the way, anybody have an idea? Take a guess. How old do you suppose you have to be at least to be in the Senate? Older. I need a date. Yeah, give it a shot. Close. 30. Okay, fine. How old do you have to be in the United States presidency or vice presidency? Increments of 5. There you go. How about the United States Supreme Court? There is no age requirement for the United States Supreme Court. There's actually some very old people on the United States Supreme Court, although when it's president, we'll see this, when a president gets to pick somebody for the Supreme Court, they often pick somebody old enough to have developed some expertise and some credibility, but young, because that's a lifetime appointment. Yes? Yeah. When I was your age, I was a page in the United States Senate. This was in the summer of 1979. It's a long time ago. Joe Biden was one of the youngest United States senators in the United States Senate at that time. He'd actually been there since like the early 70s. So he started out very young. It's a very interesting thing. He's been in U.S. government for a long, long, long time, mostly in the Senate, 8 years as vice president, and then come January 20th of next year, he will start his term as president of the United States. And how many years is that for? 4. Can you redo it? Yes, because we have another presidential election coming up. Okay? So we got the qualifications. You got to be at least 25. You got to be from the state. Do you have to be from that district? No, but it makes sense politically to be from that district, because otherwise people will go, hey, what are you, like a carpetbagger or something here? You come in from out of state and so forth. In fact, it was interesting. I was reading today, North Carolina, there's going to be a Senate race coming up and so forth, and Ivanka Trump is being talked about as being potentially running for the United States Senate in North Carolina. She doesn't live in North Carolina right now. She thinks she lives in New York, but maybe she could go move to North Carolina. How long is it? Somebody actually asked, and it depends on the state, how long you have to live in a state before you establish your state residency. And it varies. Usually it's about a year or so. Okay? All right, so let's continue. 30 years. You have to be a U.S. citizen. Yep, at least 7 years. Make sure you put this down. Do you have to be born a U.S. citizen to be in the House of Representatives? No. You can become a U.S. citizen later on. In my family, myself and all my siblings, born in the United States of America, we're U.S. siblings. My dad, born in the United States of America, we're United States citizens. My mom, born in Britain, married an American, moved to the United States of America, eventually became a U.S. citizen, became naturalized. Okay, could she be in the House? Yeah, she could. Could she? Is there a job that you can't be? Like if you're a U.S. citizen, but you weren't born in the United States, is there a job that requires you to be born in the United States of America? It's going to be president, yeah, president and vice president. So we'll get to that later. You'll have that officially in your notes later. Okay, ding, 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 ding. Okay, let's go. All right. So, right now, write this down. In the House of Representatives, currently, and when the next House of Representatives gets started on their 2-year term, they'll take the oath of office, I want to say like in the first week of January. Democrats in the majority. Write it down. Democrats in the majority. Okay? You got finished up the test? Okay, good, good, good. We're just getting into it. Article 1, Section, what are we doing? Section 2. Yep, Section 2. Okay? So, the Democrats are in the majority. Okay? And the leader of the majority is the Speaker of the House. Write it down. The title is Speaker of the House. They have a lot of power. They run the House. They run the meeting. They have a gavel. And basically, when they have the gavel, they can gavel things. They can gavel your talk over. In fact, they can basically say, you have 2 minutes, and how much time do you have? 2 minutes. They move things quickly in the House. That's how they do things, 435. By the way, quick comparison. When we get to the Senate, 100 members, do they take longer or less or more time? Or do they take longer or less time? But there's only 100 of them. Write this down. Different rules. In the House, quick, 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 quick. But in the Senate, they actually allow you to talk at great length. So when I was a page in the United States Senate, and I was there to listen to people who were debating and so forth, you couldn't cut those guys off. They could go on and on and on, quite a bit. The Senate rules are different. The House and the Senate are different in very important ways. In the House, quick, 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 quick. In the Senate, a little bit longer. Okay? All right? So we've got Nancy Pelosi. She is a Democrat, D for Democrat. She's from one of California's 53 districts, as it turns out. It's the 12th district in California. And it's located in the San Francisco area, okay? It's, small as far as geographical size, but as far as its actual population, it's got as many people as pretty much all the other districts in California. I want to put hers like right in here. Maybe it's the purple one, although it could be the blue one. Anyway, it's right in there. It's very, very small. It's very tall. Sorry? Yep, one of them, because there's several, because there's a lot of people living in that area, okay? Okay. Nancy Pelosi, you can write this down. As far as, she's been in politics a long time. I want to say she's like 80, early 80s. She's been in politics a long time. She was the very first woman to become Speaker of the House. This is actually an interesting thing. She was the Speaker of the House, then she wasn't, and then she was again. How's that possible? Because at one point, the Democrats lost the majority, and then the Republicans had the majority, and then the Republicans lost the majority. Who's going to have the majority 2 years from now? After the next election? I don't know. It's going to be very competitive. Very, very competitive. In fact, here is a little bit of a ha, 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 ha. Somebody was playing with some of the video. When you have when you're the speaker, you basically have the gavel. Sometimes they have it with a handle. Sometimes they have one that you just go like this, and it makes a very compelling noise. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. They also have one just for funsies that's a little bit bigger, right? And they use that for like show. So there was a special occasion. It was all very nice and so forth and so on. When Nancy Pelosi, this was all like, this is the way politics should be. Nancy Pelosi, as the head of the Democrats in the House, lost the majority. So she handed over her gavel to the leader of the Republicans. His name is John Boehner, and he would be the Speaker of the House. And who has the gavel now? No, who has it now? Who's the Speaker of the House? Nancy Pelosi is again, so she's got the gavel again. So somebody wanted to have some fun here. Watch this. This is just goofy, but I'll play it anyway. This is goofy. You ready? It's just goofy. It's very quick. Bless you. I might even play it twice just because, look, I mean, it's only 11 seconds. Here's John Boehner, who's going to receive the big supersized gavel from Nancy Pelosi, right? When he becomes the new speaker, and then, of course, later she'll become the speaker. But this is like several years ago.
And now has this gavel and the sacred trust that goes with it to the new speaker. God bless you, Speaker Boehner.
Did that scare you? Did that scare? Should I show it again? Again, you're like Teletubbies. Yeah, now you're going to watch for it.
And the sacred trust that goes with it to the new speaker. God bless you, Speaker Boehner.
That didn't really happen. Look, that is fakey. That is so fakey, fake. They actually get along very well. I mean, they're like really respectful and so forth of each other and so forth, but somebody was being really silly there, and so since you guys always fall for a gag like that, when I saw it, I thought, raise your hand if you're like, I'm so happy that you shared that with me. Raise your hand if you're like, no, I'm offended deeply, and okay, there we go. All right. Anyway. Boom! Just kidding. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So anyway, so Nancy Pelosi, leader of the Democrats, and who's the leader of the Republicans? Well, you're going to have to write that down too. Here he is, Kevin McCarthy. This is the person who the Republicans have chosen as their leader. Now, he's going to be known as the minority leader. We're not talking about minorities as in like a minority ethnic group within this country and so forth. We're talking about minority as because the Republicans don't have as many as the Democrats, and so they're in the minority. Got that? Does that make sense? So their leader is Kevin McCarthy. He's a Republican. Look, he's from California too. He's from the California 23rd district. Okay, what's that? There you go. Maybe he is. I don't know. I have no idea. So, Kevin McCarthy. If the Republicans were able to get the majority after this next election, which is coming up in less than 2 years, then he could be the speaker. Okay? Nancy Pelosi has been the leader of the Democrats for quite some time. Have you guys ever heard of AOC? Who is AOC? From AOC. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She's a young representative Democrat from New York City, and she's sort of like, oh, come on, these older Democrats, because the top one is Nancy Pelosi, and then the next top two among the Democrats in the House are also like in their upper 70s and early 80s. So AOC has been saying, she plays Among Us there, and now you can look it up. She played Among Us with a bunch of celebrities. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so anyway, she played Among Us and so forth. So she's kind of like, and she has like probably more people following her than any other member of the House of Representatives, except for perhaps Nancy Pelosi, but I'm not even sure about that. But she's made the point that maybe Nancy Pelosi needs to kind of get some of the new next generation in there and so forth. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that because among the Democrats there's tension, among the Republicans there's tension, among Democrats and Republicans there's always tension. But can they get along? Sure they can. Yeah, it's a big country. We've got a lot of ideas. We can do this. Okay? Yes?
The founding fathers actually predicted this. They said we're not going to have two parties because it's going to bring division among the people.
Well, and they were wrong because we have two parties. We've had two parties for most of our country's history.
And look at it. We're brothers.
We've got democracy. Does everyone agree? No. So how do we solve our disagreements? Let me see. We have, no, elections. And after the elections, we continue. Okay? So, wouldn't it be boring if we all agreed with everyone all the time? But can we come together and make some decent compromises at times? Yes, we can. Okay? It gets, yeah. So anyway, it gets kind of troublesome when people are like, oh, forget the compromise and so forth, give me a gun. I mean, that was the Deep South after Abraham Lincoln was elected. They're like, we're out of here, we're going to go get our guns. Civil War over, South lost. You're part of the Union again. Let's move forward and let's see if we can get some of these things resolved. All right, now, continuing on, let's see. Oh, we got Idaho's representatives. Here we go. You need to write these down, okay? You'll need to write these down. In fact, probably for most of you, in fact, I want to say all of you, your representative is Russ Fulcher. The 1st Congressional District. You see that? He is a Republican. I want to say he was elected now. This will be his 2nd term. If we go back here to this map, it's the dark red one. So all of northern Idaho, western Idaho, and about half of Ada County, kind of like Meridian to the west. So Eagle is in the 1st Congressional District. Star is in the 1st Congressional District. Emmett. If you're in Boise, if you happen to be in Boise, you're in the 2nd Congressional District. Okay? Yeah, and then all the way over to the east. And your representative would be Mike Simpson. Okay? I'm in the 2nd Congressional District because I live in Twin Falls. Just kidding. My dad was also in the 2nd Congressional District from Idaho Falls. Okay? All right? That's where I was born, Idaho Falls. And then we moved to Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, right across the river from Washington, D.C. When I was 5 years old, I remember it. Me, my brother, my 5 sisters, my mom, my dad, our cat, the dog. How could you even ask that question?
Yeah. We always take that.
We always take the cat. The cat was awesome.
Leaving the cat isn't an option.
No, no. This was a cat. This was our cat. She had 72 kittens. Oh my gosh, she was amazing. So she was awesome. So anyway, yeah. Most of them were distributed to farms and stuff because they need farm cats and so forth. Stop. Yeah, Trey. Got it? Shh. Just because a little thought comes into your head does not always mean that it needs to be expressed. So, continuing on. One of the powers that the House of Representatives has is to impeach. We're going to spend a fair amount of time, in fact, pretty much most of the rest of the period, going to be talking about impeachment. This is very, very important. Okay? You're going to write this down. In fact, with respect to impeachment, it's a big deal, and it also touches upon other parts of the Constitution. So we see right here in Article 1, Section 2, there is a thing called impeachment. Okay? Then look down a little bit at the bottom of Section 3. The Senate has impeachment trials. So in your notes, you can write this down. The House deals with impeachment. I'm going to get to all the details surrounding impeachment, and we'll talk about various different impeachments having to do with presidents. The House deals with impeachment. The Senate deals with impeachment trials. And then flip over to page 3. Section 4. This is going to be in Article 2, Section 4. Grounds for impeachment. Do you see that? The handout I gave to you. Take it out. Article 2, Section 4. Grounds for impeachment. Treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Okay? Do you see that? Because you want to put that all into there together. All right, so let's pause for a moment and look and see, well, first of all, what is impeachment? Okay? Here it is. I'll give you some synonyms, and I'll give you some examples that will help you understand. Are you ready? Synonyms. It's not cinnamon like you have with sugar on toast. Or like with a roll with butter. Synonym. Here's a synonym. To be charged. To be charged with wrongdoing. If you are impeached, that means you are to be charged with wrongdoing. Got that? So if somebody comes along and says, I am impeaching you, you can say, yep, well, you're not done yet. You've just charged me with doing something wrong. Now let's see how that plays out. Here's probably the best analogy that you can wrap your head around. You ready? How many of you guys drive cars yet? Anybody? All right, so you drive a car. All right, so there we go. Janet, you're driving a car. You pulled over. You're like, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't realize the speed limit was 20 miles an hour. And of course, they're always asking, do you know how fast you were going? No. Yeah. Is not knowing how fast you're going an excuse? No. So anyway, so let's say they give you a ticket. They charge you with speeding. All right? That ticket, that charge saying you are being charged with wrongdoing, that's like impeachment. It's not done. You're charged, Janet. What if you're like, oh, I'm not guilty. I'm going to challenge this ticket. Can you challenge it? Yes. Can you challenge a charge? Yes. Can you challenge an impeachment? Yes. All it means is you've been charged with doing something wrong. Okay? So if you're charged with doing something wrong as far as like a traffic ticket, you go to court. If you're charged with impeachment and you're a president, guess where you go? The Senate. Where do the impeachment trials take place? In the Senate. Very good. Okay? You got that? So who impeaches? As far as the Constitution is concerned, who charges somebody with wrongdoing? The House. Very good. Who resolves it and has a trial to determine whether or not you're really, really super in trouble? The Senate. Make sure you have that written down. The House impeaches, the Senate has a trial. And in the trial, they either find you responsible or not. Okay? All right, let's get some more details here. All right. Now, with respect to like a traffic ticket, right, if you lose, right, you're charged, so you're impeached, you lose, I don't know, you pay money. Okay? If you win, you don't pay money. Okay? So are you ready? Write this down. Impeachment with respect to the Constitution, if you lose, Megan, what do you suppose you're going to lose? Let's say you're the President of the United States, you've been impeached, the House has impeached you, and then they have the trial in the Senate and you lose. Guess what you lose? Yeah, exactly, your job. Yeah, very good. Write that down. You lose your job. You don't lose money, you don't go to jail. I mean, those are going to be done, those are separate things. Yeah, well, I'll tell you who it applies to. Okay? All right? So you can keep your job or lose your job. All right, let's deal with this part first. Who can this apply to? I'll give you the answer. Presidents, vice presidents, and judges. Federal judges. Okay? All the way up to the United States Supreme Court. Presidents, vice presidents, federal judges, all the way up to the Supreme Court justices. That's who can be impeached. Vera, who impeaches? House or the Senate? House, right? And then who conducts the trial? And then they decide it. If the Senate finds you that you have done wrong, you lose your job, right? Put this down. There have been a number, not a big number, but there's been some over U.S. history of judges that have been impeached. And let's go ahead and use the next word, convicted by the Senate. Convicted by the Senate, impeached by the House, convicted by the Senate, and removed from office. Got that? Does that make sense? Have there been presidents who have been impeached by this House? Yes. And we're going to go through all of them. How many were there? 3. There might have been 4. One of them quit before the impeachment proceedings were finished. 3 were impeached. How many of those 3 presidents that were impeached were convicted by the Senate and removed from office? 0. Write that down. We're actually going to go through those 3. All right? Question. How could you be charged with speeding but not convicted of it? You plead not guilty? Well, the not doing it part is separate. Jana was charged with speeding, but she's like, I'm innocent. Tell it to the judge. Okay, so she did tell it to the judge, and the judge looked and said, hey, officer, yeah, she's right. You're wrong. I do not convict her. She is innocent. Okay, so these 3 presidents that were impeached, they were not convicted by the Senate. So they got to keep their jobs. Okay? I'm going to go through a little bit more detail before we get into the, as far as the general things, before we get into the 3 specifics, or 4 specifics actually. I think it's like the charge, because warnings can be like, oh yeah, whatever, tell me about your warning. Okay, well now, you're actually impeached. Once a president gets impeached, they have to go through with the trial. All right, now here's another detail for you. You ready? Morgan, who does the impeachment, the House or the Senate? Who starts it off? The House or the Senate does the impeachment? Very good, the House. How many, take a guess, how many of the 435 need to agree to vote for a person, a president, say in this instance, to be impeached? What do you think? 10 of them? Is that good enough? 2/3? Is that too high? 1/2. Write it down. And we have a name for 1/2. It's called majority. Okay? So out of the 435, at least how many needed to agree that the president should be impeached on certain charges? We'll get to that in a moment. Majority, what's the majority out of 435?
Isn't that 3/4?
What is the majority? One more than half. What is half of 435?
3/4.
100 and something? 218 is a simple majority. Perfect split even is 217.5, and so if you have 218 voting for impeachment in the House, boom, that sucker's impeached. You got that?
Wait.
Question?
Did you get the very least one more person than, okay, so if you have a 50-50 ratio, we find you guilty, we don't.
Not guilty. This is for the impeachment. You need to understand. You got to use the right words.
But if we find him
We found that we think you've done something really wrong, so we're going to charge you. Because Jana could have been like, and the officer could have been like, this is just going to give you a warning, right? Would you rather just have a warning than a ticket? Yeah, because with a warning, you're like, I feel like I'm lucky. And yes, officer, I'll never like da-da-da-da-da. But if you get a ticket, I mean, you could end up having to pay the ticket. I mean, you can go to court and challenge it, but you could end up losing, and then you have to pay the fine. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get into all the details of that and so forth. Yeah. Yeah. The ticket is the charge. If you're not going to contest the ticket, you just pay it. It's like, I plead guilty. I'm going to go ahead and pay it. If you're like, I'm pleading not guilty, let's have a trial. At the end of the trial, you're either not guilty, you don't have to pay, or you're guilty, you have to pay. You have to pay the same amount either way, if you pled guilty or if you're found guilty. Okay? All right, so let's get this right to it. Who, Anna, is going to do the trial of the person who's impeached? Very good. Take a guess. What ratio do you suppose is going to be required for there to be a guilty verdict in the Senate? It is going to be more. It is going to be 2/3. Very good. Write that down, everybody. It's going to be 2/3. All right, so since you got that, Anna, you got the last one on the House. What's the minimum number of 2/3 of 100 senators? 67, yeah. Because 2/3 officially of 100 is 66.66 anyway. So the minimum 2/3 would be 67. Okay? So which is easier to accomplish, Trey? An impeachment in the House or a conviction in the Senate? Perfect. Make sure you guys write that down. I mean, that's just sort of like clear. It's a smaller number in order to accomplish. An impeachment in the House takes just 1/50%, and a conviction takes 2/3. All right? Does that make sense? So it's not as much of a surprise that, wow, the House impeached 3 presidents, but the Senate has convicted 0 of those 3 presidents. Okay? Now, let's take a look. Then at the top of page 3, this is going to be the grounds for impeachment. This is Article 2, Section 4. All right, the grounds for impeachment. I want to talk about those a little bit here, because there's a little bit of gray area in some of these ones. In fact, on a couple of these ones, it's like really a lot of gray area. All right, you ready? Where it says, page 3, right up at the top, you got Section 3 there. This is part of Article 2. And then right there at Section 4, it's like that's where they put the grounds for impeachment. That's where they stuck in the Constitution. So if the House is looking and going, well, I don't know, what should we impeach for? Give me some guidance here. Oh, there it is. We can give impeachment if the person has done treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Or, right? So it's not, don't have to prove all 4 of them. You just have to cite one of those. Or you could do more than one. You ready? All right, let's see. Let's deal with this one. Some of these ones are pretty straightforward. Raise your hand if you can tell me, what is treason? Yes. Against your own country. Yeah, you're a traitor. Okay? That is one charge. If we had a president that was actually against our own country, charged with treason as a traitor. Okay? That's a pretty serious charge, right? All right. It's a separate thing. It's a good question. It's a separate thing. As far as whether or not somebody's going to have any criminal penalties, that's going to be handled separately, not by the House and the Senate. That's going to be handled by the federal courts. What is the most, Trey, you can lose if you are convicted in the Senate of an impeachment charge that the House brought?
You're dope.
Exactly. Okay? That's it. Yeah, no, I mean, it is a very, very serious thing. All right, next one. Raise your hand if you can tell me, what's bribery? Okay. Yep. So if you're in government and you receive money or something of value from somebody in order to do something as part of your job, it's like, oh, I'm going to take some money from you. Like, if Jenna tried, she's not going to try this. When she gets pulled over, she's not going to wave a 50 at the officer and go, here, will you take this and make it all go away? That would be bribery. Don't do that in this country. Some other countries that are corrupt, that's how you deal with police officers. In fact, that's what they expect you to do. It's really messed up, very corrupt. Okay? But in this country, bribery is a very serious offense, trying to pay off a government official. Okay? Got that one? High crimes. Now, that's a little bit more vague. Let's go ahead and write this down. High crimes. That's going to be left up to, well, I don't know, a member of the House of Representatives or a member of the Senate. They've got to decide what a high crime is. Maybe it's a felony, maybe like murder or something, or kidnapping or rape or something. Maybe that's a high crime, but it's left up to them. Here's the one that's the most squishy. You ready? Misdemeanors. What the heck? A misdemeanor. If Jana was going, instead of just maybe 5 or 10 or 15 miles over the speed limit, she was going like, she was racing along the freeway, right? She's not going to get just a simple ticket. She's going to be charged with probably a misdemeanor. Okay, if she smashes into somebody, and maybe then it's going to be a felony, supposed high crime. But a misdemeanor. Are we going to kick somebody out of the White House for driving too fast? So this is the weird thing. Write this down. Misdemeanors, it's like there's a lot of gray area there. So it really is up to the members of the House and the members of the Senate to decide how serious is this. Oh, and by the way, guess who's looking on in this whole proceeding? The American people. And for those representatives, their voters, their constituents back in their district. And for the senators, all the voters and the people living back in their state. Is that going to influence them? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. All right? So let's look at the specific incidents. You ready? 4 incidents where presidents were going to be under scrutiny as far as impeachment and potential removal. Here's the first one. Andrew Johnson. Some of you guys will remember this from last year in 9th grade. Andrew Johnson was the president who came into the White House after, raise your hand if you can tell me. Who? Yeah, Lincoln was shot and killed. Andrew Johnson took over the rest of Lincoln's second term. And it was a lot. It was like almost a full 4 years. Write this down. As it turns out, some of you guys remember this, Andrew Johnson wasn't real popular. I mean, Lincoln was a Republican president, but for some reason he was looking for sort of a compromise. So he got somebody who wasn't really like a straight-on Republican. He was more sort of like a balance the ticket sort of thing. Anyway, write this down. Andrew Johnson was not very popular among Republicans in Congress. They hated him. They're like, man, you're helping all these former Confederates in the South, and you're like, light slap on the wrist for these former Confederates. They were mad at him. And so in I want to say this is like 1869, actually. I think they got started on this in his last year in the presidency. They impeached him in the House. They basically say you're not doing your job right, you're doing all kinds of things wrong, you're mucking up all sorts of stuff. We really want you out of there. We want you gone. By the way, let me just throw this out. At that time of the Constitution, if the president died and the vice president took over, was there like a new vice president? No. At that time, there was nobody to back up the vice president. Today, if a president dies or resigns, the vice president comes in, takes it over, and then they fill that vice presidential vacancy. Back then, no. Who would have taken over? I don't know. You guys know this. You'll have this officially later on. Who is next in line after the vice president? So like today, if Trump and Pence both went down, poof, no opportunity to replace. Who would come in? Nope. Speaker of the House. Speaker of the House. Yeah, Speaker of the House. Okay? So that's how it works out. It's okay. As far as, so who's the Speaker of the House? So Nancy Pelosi would be it. So anyway, Andrew Johnson, he was impeached by the House, simple majority. They had a trial in the Senate. It came very close, but write this down. Andrew Johnson was not convicted. They had a whole trial in the House. Okay. Oh, by the way, take a guess. Raise your hand if you can guess who's the person that's going to supervise the trial? They don't get a vote on it, but they sort of supervise. Nope, not Speaker of the House. Good guess. No, the president is not going to supervise because the president might be the one who's being tried. It's going to be a judge. Guess which judge? It's going to be the Supreme Court Chief Justice. So of the 9 justices on the court, the one that is entitled Chief Justice will preside. So there you go. All right, question. John Roberts, but we'll get to that later. Okay, that'll be actually on your next test that you'll have to know that officially. Okay, yep, it's okay. All right. Next. Oh my gosh, here we go. All right. Oh my gosh, just chill out. Here we go. This is actually, I should have put the other one in there. Okay? Sorry. Actually, I should have put another slide in there because I thought I did. Anyway, number 2, write this down. This person was not impeached, but write his name down. Richard M. Nixon, 37th President of the United States of America. It's worth noting because a lot of people are like, he was impeached. I'm sure he was impeached. Nope, he wasn't. He was about to get impeached. Here's the deal. Here's the facts. He was running for re-election. And he ended up getting re-elected. Richard Nixon, number 37. Okay? He ended up getting re-elected in a huge margin. He carried every single state except for Massachusetts and then the District of Columbia. Okay? I mean, it was a huge victory. And yet, in the early stages of that year, running for re-election and so forth, he and his campaign team were kind of afraid that maybe something was going to go on and maybe the Democrats are going to do pretty well. And they decided that maybe they should break into the Democratic headquarters at Watergate. That was where the headquarters were. It was in a hotel in Washington, D.C. And the guys that broke it got caught. And then they're like, oh no, they got caught. They're going to talk. Pay them off. And so they're paying them off. And then people are conducting investigations, Congress is, and other investigators are, and they're hushing this up and hushing that up, and they had all these different parts of the federal government that were involved in covering up what actually occurred. Sometimes it's not the original crime that's the real bad part. Sometimes it's the cover-up on top of that that's the real bad part. So when everything was all unpacked and so forth, it looked like, guess who was participating in this massive cover-up? Nixon. Nixon. It looked like that was where things are going. And Republicans, because he was a Republican president, Republicans in Congress and so forth were going, Nixon, this don't look too good for you. And Nixon ultimately, before he was impeached by the House, they were going to vote on impeachment within the next week or two. Before he was impeached, he quit. Got that? He quit. So was he ever impeached? No, actually, here's an interesting question. If he really maybe did all those kinds of things, could he potentially face federal criminal charges? He could have. We'll get this later on because it's going to be in your notes. What is something that could happen to somebody who's facing federal criminal charges so that all of a sudden, they're gone? It's called a pardon. Gerald Ford, who was Nixon's vice president, pardoned Nixon so that Nixon did not face any federal criminal charges. Ford was like, maybe he should be, I don't know, maybe we should just move on. Maybe that's the best thing for the country to do, move on. Enough people actually didn't agree with Ford, and he actually did not get elected himself in 1976 when Jimmy Carter defeated him in a pretty close election. Some of the people felt like, if a president did something wrong, they shouldn't be pardoned. Here's an interesting side question. Can a president pardon himself? I don't know. I mean, maybe. Notice, when we get to pardons, it's actually an interesting question because some people are thinking, will Trump face potential criminal charges? If they're federal ones, could a pardon by a president clear the deck and make those go away? Yes. What about if you're facing state charges? No. Jan, if you were getting a ticket for speeding, is that a federal charge or a state charge? Turns out it's a state charge. Okay. Could President Trump pardon you for that if it's a state charge? No, he couldn't. Okay? So anyway, there we have President Nixon pardoned by President Ford. Was President Nixon ever impeached? No. Okay? So therefore, they didn't have an impeachment, they didn't have a trial, and so forth. Then we get to Clinton. Here we go. President number 42. All right, this one's a little complicated. I'll just tell you right now. Was President Clinton impeached? Yes. Was he convicted? No. Convicted and removed from office? No, I already told you. How many presidents have been convicted and removed from office? 0. How many of them have been impeached? 3. Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton. Who's the third one?
Trump.
Donald Trump. Yeah, it just happened like this year. Okay? Yeah, I did. Was he removed from office as a result of the impeachment? No, they had a trial in the Senate, and they're like, nope.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I mean, this is fresh. I had to update my slide presentation, okay, to include the Trump one. So here's the details on Bill Clinton. Okay, you ready? Because this one's a fascinating one. Bill Clinton, before Bill Clinton was president of the United States, he was governor of Arkansas. And while he was governor of Arkansas, he was married, of course, to Hillary Clinton. He's still married to Hillary Clinton. Here's one of the things. Shh. Here's one of the things that you need to know. And it is not disputed because it actually came up because when Bill Clinton was running for president of the United States, people were like, I don't know, is he cheating on his wife? And da-da-da-da-da. And the two of them had an interview on television in front of like the nation, and they basically said, butt out, it's nobody's business. It's no one's business. Because there was charges. Jennifer Flowers, who was a news reporter in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Governor Clinton was, she was basically saying she had a long-term relationship with Bill Clinton. Okay? And then Bill Clinton said, nope, that wasn't true, didn't happen, and so forth. Well, then who's this other one? Paula Jones. You can write this down. Paula Jones was a worker in the Arkansas state government. And she brought a lawsuit, hang on, she brought a lawsuit against Governor Clinton. And this is where things get sticky for Clinton. Clinton, as a governor, was accused by Paula Jones of making advances on her, that he wanted to have some intimate relations with her. Shh. Okay? Clinton's like, no, it didn't happen. She said she didn't want to, and then she said in her lawsuit she was harmed in her employment. You understand that? So because she said no, I think I'm going to say she even got demoted or reassigned or something like that. And she's like, that's not fair. That's sexual harassment. So she brings the lawsuit. She brings the lawsuit against Clinton. Is that a serious thing? Sure, it is a serious thing. Okay? And as part of that lawsuit, they conduct investigations, they put people under oath, they ask you certain questions, and when they ask you certain questions under oath, what are you supposed to do? Tell the truth. What if you don't tell the truth when you're under oath? Then you can get in trouble. That's a whole other separate thing. That's called perjury, lying under oath about very important things. Well, what would he possibly be lying under oath about? The Paula Jones attorneys got wind that President Clinton may have had potentially a relationship with Monica Lewinsky, a young White House intern, during his first term. A young White House intern. And so they wanted to ask questions about Monica Lewinsky and put him under oath. And you know what Bill Clinton said about the Monica Lewinsky? Well, let you hear. Here is President Clinton on television. Not that one. Here he is.
All the way toward helping us, I think. Now, I had to go back to work on my State of the Union speech. And I worked on it till pretty late last night.
Is he under oath here, by the way?
But I
No.
wanna say
This
one
is just
thing
a
to,
speech thingy.
I want
press
you to
conference.
listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
Did he have relations with Monica Lewinsky? Gosh, you mean we have to wait until after Christmas to get into the evidence of the case? Yep. Oh, we'll have that to look forward to in 2021 because the investigation showed, according to some, that when he was under oath about Monica Lewinsky, that's what they were saying. And that's what the House impeached him on. And his defense was, I wasn't really a lie, and even if it wasn't really a lie, it wasn't that big of a deal. So cut me some slack. Anyway, we'll carry that through. Y'all are done for this calendar year. Oh, goodness.